I am almost certain that you have seen ads for the Shen Yun Performing Arts. Every year around this time, we see commercials, billboards, and posters of these brightly colored costumes, beautiful dancers, fans of all colors, and it seems like the stage is dripping in color and silk. Honestly, it looks like an incredible show, almost like Cirque du Soleil if they didn't fly in the air. And what if I told you that the creators of Shen Yun actually were affiliated with a cult that has since been completely ostracized from China? They are not allowed there anymore. Furthermore, there are allegations of organ harvesting tied to this cult. So there is a lot to unpack today. So if you've seen one of these performances and you loved it, well, get ready because it gets really, really dark. So sit back, relax, and take a deep breath. It's time to let the fresh air in. Hi everyone, welcome back or welcome if you're new. My name is Erin and I am fascinated by all things cults, true crime, and unique spiritual practices. I post about 2 videos every single week on one of these topics, so if you like this sort of thing, please consider subscribing to the channel. I would absolutely love to have you here. Also, throughout December, I am featuring a single parent in every video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a little bit about their story, and their Amazon wish list will be in the description and the pinned comment down below. And if you have the means or feel so inclined or inspired by their story, please consider purchasing one of the items on the Amazon wish list. I was raised by a single mom. I have seen firsthand how hard it can be. It is so stressful to create a magical holiday season for your young ones, especially when you're doing it all by yourself. So let's meet today's single parent. Also, I want to mention this will probably be the last single parent of this holiday season that I feature in a video. However, if you did email me, I will be sharing some other lists in my community tab. So please keep your eye out on my community tab and, engage with those posts just because I don't want anyone to feel left out. I literally just vetted these and then accepted them as they came in. So if you weren't picked for a video, it's absolutely nothing personal. It's literally just I went in the order that I received everything. But I think I only have like 1 or 2 that I can't fit into a video. So just keep your eye on my community tab because I want to make sure everybody has some kind of opportunity to get some type of gift. All right, guys. Well, let's meet today's single parent. Today's single parent is Melissa. Melissa writes, "First, happy holidays to you and your family. Second, thank you for using your platform to give back to others who may be in need. And lastly, I love your channel. It's the cults for me. It's completely wild the things people do at times." Agreed. She says, "I was the type of person who normally lets their pride get in the way of my progress and getting help that I may need at the time. So when watching your channel, I've seen you telling your viewers about this opportunity. I thought about it and was like, no, I can't do that. It was the second video that made me get it together because I truly need help and I'm blocking my own blessing." Oh, I know how hard it is to ask for help. I'm also someone who has a hard time asking for help. So good on you for actually doing that. So once again, thank you for this opportunity. A little background on my current situation. I have 5 kids. Wow, 3 girls and 2 boys, all teenagers who are very awesome. I lost my job in April because of health issues that I'm still going through. So I had no stable income. Oh, that's so hard. I would do DoorDash to help supplement what we had coming in, which was my mom's retirement. This is another plot twist because my mom wasn't living with us before her spinal surgery in May, which shouldn't have happened due to the fact that she has dementia. As you can imagine, the surgery made the dementia worse. Oh man, I'm sorry you've had such a rough year. So now it's my kids, mom, and I living in a 3-bedroom house just floating. My girls have a room. My mom is now in my boys' room, me in my room, so my boys sleep on the sofa in the front room. With my mom moving into the house, our lives have changed. We are full-time caregivers, and it is hard at times. My mom moved in with barely anything because she previously lived with her now estranged husband. After her surgery, the hospital reported him for abuse of my mom. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm so sorry. Remember I said earlier I was door dashing? Well, last week, my back tire axle completely broke and spun out in the middle of the main road. Thank God no one was hurt, but my car was towed by the police and I'm not able to do DoorDash at this time. I am really grateful for my kids because they have stepped up and have been a huge part of my support team. My two youngest are still trying to process the quick digression in my mom, and I know it's hard on all of them. They worry about me, the bills, and now their grandmother. They deserve so much more than I can provide at this time, and I know God will deliver us. Thank you for this again, and I truly appreciate the open arms for families who need help at this time. P.S. My husband officially left in August. Oh, Melissa. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that this is going to resonate with many people. And from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry you've had such a challenging year. And I hope that we'll be able to give you that extra boost that you might need. Hopefully it's not too late in the season. So Melissa's Amazon wish list is in the pinned comment and the description box down below. All of the items should be mailed directly to her address, which will be privated. So if you have the means, please consider purchasing an item for her. I think it could be really, really helpful. And bless you, Melissa, and your family. Oh, she also added a little bit of something. She says, sorry for the gift selections. I had no idea what to add to the list because I didn't want to ask them what they wanted. I just want to surprise them with things. Once again, you'll find that Amazon wish list down in the pinned comment below. And now let's get into this video because we are going to delve into the intricate details of Shen Yun's creation, the rigorous training regimen of its performers, and the daily life and compensation of the artists. And of course, all of those controversies and allegations that have surfaced over the years. So Shen Yun was founded by practitioners of Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, a spiritual discipline that emerged in China in the early 1990s. Falun Gong combines meditation, Qigong exercises, and moral philosophy centered on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. The Chinese government actually labeled this group a cult and has actively suppressed its activities, which has added a layer of political complexity to Shen Yun's operations. The mission of Shen Yun is to revive the essence of traditional Chinese culture, which the organization believes has been systematically destroyed under decades of communist rule in China. Through its beautiful performances, Shen Yun aims to showcase the beauty and depth of China's 5,000-year-old civilization, presenting stories and legends from various dynasties, ethnic groups, and historical periods. The company's name, Shen Yun, translates to the beauty of divine beings dancing, reflecting its aspiration to convey a sense of the divine through art. So, what exactly is Falun Gong, and what is the connection to Shen Yun? Falun Gong can be translated as practice of the law wheel or Dharma wheel practice. The term itself carries symbolic and spiritual significance that's rooted in Buddhist and Taoist traditions, reflecting the core philosophies and practices of this spiritual discipline. The word Falun is derived from two Chinese characters, Fa meaning law or Dharma, and Lun meaning wheel. In Buddhist and Taoist contexts, law or Dharma refers to universal principles or truths that govern the cosmos and human existence itself. So this wheel symbolizes cycles, balance, and the revolving nature of cosmic energy. So together, Falun refers to a metaphysical wheel of law or Dharma wheel that practitioners believe exists within their bodies. It's kind of like the natural order of your body. So according to these teachings, this spiritual wheel is connected to the universe, rotating continuously to cultivate energy and purify the practitioner's mind and body. Now, the second component, gong, translates to work or practice. It specifically denotes the disciplined effort required to cultivate spiritual energy or spiritual power. In Falun Gong, Gong encompasses both the physical practices of meditation and exercises, as well as the moral and spiritual transformation that's achieved through adherence to this group's ethical principles. So together, Falun Gong represents a comprehensive spiritual discipline that is aimed at cultivating the mind and the body. Practitioners seek to align themselves with universal truths and develop personal virtue known as Dai through the dual paths of physical refinement and moral development. Central to this pursuit are the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance, which guide practitioners in their daily lives. So within this framework, the Falun is, and I'm honestly not sure exactly how to pronounce some of these words. People are saying there are a couple different translations, I suppose, so I promise I'm doing my best over here. But Falun is more than just a symbolic concept to them. It is described as a spiritual mechanism that enables practitioners to actually harmonize with cosmic laws and thus progress forward towards enlightenment. So this practice is not limited to physical movements or just meditation. It's also deeply intertwined with the philosophy of living that emphasizes personal growth, ethical behavior, and the cultivation of inner peace. Falun Gong, therefore, is more than just a name. It encapsulates the essence of the practice, blending ancient Chinese spiritual traditions with a modern framework for self-improvement and alignment with universal principles. Li Hongzhi, founder of Falun Gong, was born on July 7, 1952 in China. His early biographies, which appeared in Falun Gong publications, emphasize his spiritual development from a very young age. So according to these accounts, Li was actually trained by various Buddhist and Taoist masters who imparted to him the practice and moral philosophies that would later form the foundation of his organization. These biographies suggest that by the age of 8, Li had acquired, quote, superb great law with supernatural powers, unquote, including abilities like invisibility and levitation. Yeah, so at 8, this kid could go invisible and levitate, and then he started a cult. Sounds like someone else we've covered on the channel before. Maharishi seems to ring a bell. However, these claims are a narrative, and I'm sure you could guess that these claims have not been substantiated by any real, tangible, or independent evidence. So in the early 1980s, Li completed his high school education through correspondence courses, having had his formal education interrupted by the Cultural Revolution. He later moved for civilian employment, with some accounts suggesting that he had also worked in the military. So during this period, Li began synthesizing the teachings that he claimed to have received into what would become Falun Dafa, or Falun Gong. By 1989, he had finalized his Qigong system and spent the next few years testing it with a small group of students before finally unleashing it to the public in 1992. So this group emerged during a period in China known as the Qigong boom, which spanned from the 1980s into the 1990s. Now, Qigong is an ancient and traditional Chinese practice that involves coordinated body movements with meditation. So when Li Hongzhi introduced Falun Gong to the public in 1992, it was distinguished from other Qigong practices because it emphasized moral teachings and spiritual development alongside those physical exercises. It was like an all-in-one, one-stop culty shop. So his teachings were compiled in texts such as Zhuan Falun, which became very central to this practice. It was kind of like, from what I've learned, my understanding of it, like the Bible of this cult. And the growth of this group was rapid and widespread. By the mid-1990s, just a few years after it was exposed to the public, it had attracted millions of practitioners across China. Estimates suggest that by 1999, the number of adherents ranged from 70 to 100 million. I can't even wrap my head around those numbers. The practice was initially supported by the Chinese government and received positive coverage in state media. However, as its popularity continued to surge, concerns arose within the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, regarding the movement's size and, of course, independence. A couple years earlier, in 1996, Falun Gong separated from the state-run Qinggong Association to maintain its own independence. This move, coupled with the practice's growing popularity, led to increased scrutiny from the authorities. Tensions started to escalate, and this culminated in a nationwide ban on Falun Gong by the Chinese government in July of 1999. The government actually labeled the group a heretical cult and initiated a widespread, nationwide crackdown, including arrests, propaganda campaigns, and reports of human rights abuses against practitioners. So, what exactly drew 70 to 100 million people into this practice? Well, I mentioned before that there were three fundamental principles: truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. These principles were not merely philosophical ideas within this group. They served as a comprehensive moral framework that would guide practitioners in both their spiritual and everyday lives. Adherence to these values was believed to help individuals cultivate their culture, align with those universal truths, and ultimately, of course, you probably guessed it, achieve spiritual enlightenment. Now, truthfulness emphasizes honesty and integrity in thought, speech, and action. Practitioners are encouraged to live authentically while facing their flaws and striving for sincerity in all aspects of their life. This principle fosters self-reflection and transparency, which are considered vital for spiritual growth by the group. Now, the second one is compassion, and this involves cultivating kindness, empathy, and understanding towards others. Practitioners aim to let go of selfishness and adopt a selfless attitude, seeking to help others and contribute positively to society. Compassion is seen as a way to harmonize oneself with the larger world. And of course, forbearance, the third principle, focuses on patience, endurance, and resilience in the face of hardship or adversity. This principle teaches practitioners to maintain composure and tolerance even when they're confronted with difficulty or conflicts. By practicing forbearance, individuals develop inner strength and the ability to transcend negative emotions like anger and resentment. It all sounds pretty good, right? Who doesn't want to be compassionate and work on forbearance and self-reflect? These principles were intended to be integrated into literally all aspects of your life. Practitioners strive to not only embody them during meditation, but also in their interactions with others and their approach to challenges. The goal is to cultivate this moral rectitude and spiritual integrity, which are seen as essential for achieving a higher state of being. And I, for one, am inclined to agree. But don't worry, this is one of those situations where on the surface, this all sounds very attractive. This sounds like a group you might want to be a part of, right? Everyone's going to be self-reflective, compassionate, giving, generous. But don't worry, we're going to peel back the layers very soon. Now, the physical practice of Falun Gong complements all of those moral teachings. It consists of 5 meditative exercises that are designed to cultivate energy, improve your health, and purify the body. These exercises are described as gentle and accessible to people of all ages and all fitness levels. So the first one is Buddha showing 1,000 hands. This exercise involves a series of slow stretching movements that open up energy pathways in the body. It's intended to improve circulation to prepare the body for a deeper meditation. And then there's the standing stance. Practitioners hold a series of static postures that resemble holding a wheel at different heights. So this exercise is said to enhance energy flow and develop inner strength. The third meditative exercise is called penetrating the two cosmic extremes. This exercise involves fluid, sweeping movements that are believed to harmonize the energy between the physical body and the cosmos. It's aimed at expelling your negative energy and then reabsorbing positive energy. Number 4 is the Falun Heavenly Circulation. This movement-based exercise guides energy through the body in a sort of circular pattern, and this is meant to promote balance and well-being. And then finally, after all of that, you get to sit for your meditation. So this seated meditation involves deep stillness and focused concentration. Practitioners aim to achieve a tranquil state, which is said to foster spiritual enlightenment and also cleanse the mind. So the combination of these exercises is believed to refine the body and mind simultaneously. And while the movements improve physical health by promoting energy flow, the meditative aspect is intended to cultivate inner peace and spiritual awareness. Now, beyond these physical exercises, Falun Gong emphasizes the importance of moral rectitude. Practitioners are encouraged to let go of all attachments and desires, which are seen as obstacles to spiritual growth. This could be attachment to material possessions, status, and emotional desires, all of which are believed to weigh down the spirit and hinder its progress towards enlightenment. The practice teaches that by relinquishing these attachments, individuals can actually elevate their spiritual state and align with the principles of the universe. This process involves a continuous effort to improve one's moral character and overcome all feelings of selfishness, jealousy, and other negative traits. Practitioners view life's challenges as opportunities to test and strengthen their adherence to the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. But I also want to bring up something with practices like this. I think it is and can be healthy to practice non-attachment, especially to outcomes that are out of your control or other people's behavior. But this idea of detachment completely can really be incredibly isolating. Like if you're attached to absolutely nothing in your life, it feels to me a little existential. Like, what do you have to live for? Just the knowledge that you're more enlightened than other people? Because to me, that feels like you would totally just be living in your ego. I know that the practice of non-attachment can be considered healthy, but I also think there's something to say for having a strong community and for having other people keep you accountable and also understand yourself better so that you know what you like and you don't like. I believe that, yes, we can get swept up in social media, swept up in material items, and it can be really vital for us to stop chasing these tangible things and focus more on things like connection and family and maybe your own spiritual life. But I think overall, the teaching of non-attachment can also be a little bit dangerous if it isolates you too far from the actual reality of the world that you live in and your family and friends. But that is also just my opinion. I'd be really curious to know what you guys think. So Falun Gong also places a significant emphasis on the accumulation of virtue, which is seen as a spiritual energy that determines one's fate and spiritual advancement. So by living a virtuous life and avoiding harmful actions, practitioners believe that they can build a reservoir of positive energy that supports their cultivation journey. So let's talk a little bit about the integration of mind, body, and spirit. This cult's approach to spiritual cultivation is completely holistic. They want to integrate mind, body, and spirit into a unified practice. So those physical exercises purify the body, connect your body to the cosmos, while the moral principles guide practitioners towards ethical living and spiritual refinement. So together, these elements form a very comprehensive system that aims to bring these practitioners closer to enlightenment. The teachings of this cult also highlight the concept of karmic retribution, suggesting that one's actions have a direct consequence on their future, either in this life or subsequent lives. So by following the practice's principles and striving for moral excellence, practitioners seek to transcend the cycle of karma and achieve spiritual liberation. And that sounds great in theory, but it also feels like it could put a ton of pressure on the practitioner. What if you just make a mistake? If you make a mistake innocently, are you going to experience karmic retribution for it? That feels like a lot of pressure for me. So how is this cult connected to Shen Yun Performing Arts? That's what we're here to talk about. Well, Shen Yun Performing Arts was actually established in 2006 by practitioners of Falun Gong. The company's mission is to revive traditional Chinese culture through dance and music, presenting performances that draw inspiration from China's rich history and legends. It feels to me like it is a political piece and a way for the cult to gain more of a following and honestly exploit the performers, because it makes the performers think that not only are they becoming enlightened, they are part of a much bigger purpose in life. Shen Yun's artists practice Falun Dafa and serves as a source of inspiration for those performances. The integration of spirituality into art is, in fact, a continuation of ancient Chinese traditions where artists would actually practice meditation and seek inner stillness as a means to create beautiful art. According to Falun Gong teachings, true creativity arises from moral purity and alignment with universal principles. Shen Yun's artists are expected to embody these values in both their art and personal lives, with Falun Dafa meditation and teachings playing a central role in both their training and performances. While Shen Yun's mission on the surface is to have a cultural revival, and this all appears very admirable, critics actually argue that its connection to Falun Gong raises some concerns about exploitation. These criticisms stem from several key issues. One of them is religious and political messaging. Shen Yun performances are infused with overt religious and political narratives, which can be polarizing for audiences who are expecting a purely cultural showcase during the holiday season. The only reason I'm talking about this cult is because a friend of mine literally texted me after she saw the show last year. This was when I first started my channel, and was like, hey, you need to talk about this because this is a lot. It was one of the cultiest things I've ever seen. And I was like, it is on the list now. So while the show highlights themes from Chinese mythology and history, they also include dramatic depictions of Falun Gong practitioners being persecuted by the CCP. These scenes often serve to portray Falun Gong as a righteous, oppressed group that was fighting against the tyranny. So this blending of spirituality and politics has led some to view Shen Yun as a propaganda tool for the cult itself rather than a genuine artistic endeavor. Critics have accused the company of using the guise of cultural revival to advance the cult's ideological agenda, and this can create discomfort among audience members who are unfamiliar with the movement's beliefs. Because get this, nobody involved in this show is allowed to go to China. So on one hand, they want to celebrate China's rich culture, but the group is not supported at all or even recognized by China itself. Now, the second issue that arises from critics is the rigor and discipline in the name of spirituality, because performers in Shen Yun are held to exceptionally high standards of discipline and rigor, which critics argue crosses the line into exploitation. Life as a Shen Yun artist is structured around intense training, adherence to Falun Gong's spiritual practices, and very strict living arrangements. Artists reportedly train for hours daily, practicing not only the physical demands of classical Chinese dance, but also spiritual cultivation through meditation and the study of Falun Dafa teachings. This strict regimen, while contributing to Shen Yun's technical precision and artistic excellence, may also limit personal freedom. Performers are required to live according to the cult's moral code, which prohibits behaviors like drinking alcohol, smoking, and even engaging in premarital sex. Critics argue that such expectations place a very intense undue pressure on individuals to conform to a specific belief system, potentially blurring the line between voluntary spiritual practice and enforced ideological adherence. Number 3 is control over the artists' lives. Shen Yun performers live and train on a campus in upstate New York where their daily lives are highly regulated. Reports from former members suggest that this environment fosters an atmosphere of control and isolation, as artists are expected to devote themselves fully to the company and mission. Some former performers have described feeling trapped with limited opportunities to voice concerns or pursue any personal aspirations outside of Shen Yun. The organization's control over its members has led to allegations of exploitation, with critics likening Shen Yun to a closed community where dissent is discouraged, aka a cult. So while proponents of Falun Gong and Shen Yun argue that these practices foster a sense of shared purpose and spiritual growth, detractors suggest that they may instead serve to reinforce group conformity and loyalty to Falun Gong. Number 4, of course, is the financial and labor concerns. There have been allegations that Shen Yun performers received modest stipends that do not reflect the labor-intensive nature of their work. Reports indicate that dancers may earn as little as $500 to $1,000 per month during training and performance seasons, despite the high ticket prices for Shen Yun performances, which actually range from $80 to $200 per seat. So critics question whether the revenue generated by Shen Yun is actually being fairly distributed among its performers, or is primarily just used to support Falun Gong's broader initiatives. These financial concerns are compounded by reports of grueling schedules, with performers often participating in over 100 shows per season across multiple continents. The combination of low pay, demanding schedules, and strict living conditions has led some to characterize Shen Yun as exploitative, particularly given its reliance on young, idealistic performers who may lack the means to advocate for better conditions, or might just be so excited to be performing full-time they don't even ask the question. As someone who has wanted to make a living my entire life off of creative endeavors, any amount of money to do what you love kind of trumps any red flag. I have gotten myself into some uncomfortable situations because I thought I would be a full-time performer, and then all of a sudden I'm traveling around the country with this group and I'm barely getting any per diem and barely making any money, and then I have to go back home and grind and grind and grind. I mean, it can be so exhausting. I mean, I've had artistic pursuits for the last 15 years, and I'm actually starting another desk job in 2025. So it is hard out there for artists. So this all begs the question, is this a cultural revival or religious indoctrination? This has become an area of contention. Shen Yun's claim to revive traditional Chinese culture. So while the performances do showcase elements of classical Chinese dance, music, and mythology, they also reflect the ideological lens of Falun Gong, not necessarily China and China's history. So this raises questions about the authenticity of Shen Yun's portrayal of Chinese culture, as its narratives are heavily influenced by a spiritual movement that positions itself in opposition to the Chinese government. Critics argue that Shen Yun's messaging distorts Chinese culture by framing it through this lens of Falun Gong's teachings. For example, traditional stories are often reinterpreted to include overt moral or political lessons that align with Falun Gong's principles rather than the reality of the history itself. So this has led some to view Shen Yun as a form of religious indoctrination rather than an impartial celebration of Chinese heritage. So what does Shen Yun and Falun Gong say about these allegations? So the Chinese government banned both Shen Yun and Falun Gong from ever entering its borders ever again, and has labeled them as threats to the state due to their perceived ideological opposition to the Communist Party. This ban has shaped Shen Yun's existence and mission, positioning it as an exiled organization dedicated to preserving Chinese culture and highlighting human rights abuses, particularly the persecution of Falun Gong practitioners. Shen Yun, as an extension of the Falun Gong movement, isn't allowed to perform in China. The Chinese government strictly prohibits Shen Yun shows, viewing the company as a propagandist arm of Falun Gong. The performances often include content that criticizes the CCP, such as depictions of religious persecutions and dramatizations of Falun Gong practitioners standing resilient in the face of oppression. These themes directly challenge the CCP's authority and narrative, making Shen Yun totally unwelcome in mainland China. Falun Gong itself has been labeled a cult by the CCP since 1999. When this group got really popular in the 90s, the CCP grew concerned about how independent the group was becoming and was wowed by the capacity it had to mobilize such large groups of people, and this led to an aggressive crackdown. So this included widespread arrests, re-education campaigns, and allegations of torture and forced organ harvesting. So these tensions make it impossible for Falun Gong practitioners or even Shen Yun performers to go or operate within China without risking severe repercussions. So Shen Yun portrays itself as a humanitarian and artistic organization that's working to preserve China's cultural heritage, right? And the company argues that this heritage has been systematically destroyed by the CCP's policies. The company sees its work as a continuation of China's ancient traditions with an emphasis on the spiritual and moral values that Falun Gong adheres to. For Shen Yun, the political themes in the performance are a necessary component of the mission. The company argues that by showcasing these narratives, it provides a voice for those who have been silenced within China. So, for example, depictions of police arresting Falun Gong practitioners or practitioners ascending to a higher spiritual plane despite that persecution serve as artistic expressions of the resilience and moral conviction of these followers. The performances are framed as educational tools, raising global awareness about human rights abuses in China. While Shen Yun and its proponents see political content as essential, critics actually argue that it detracts from the company's claim of being a purely artistic endeavor. Some audience members who are unaware of Shen Yun's ties to a cult have been surprised or uncomfortable with the overt political themes, which include those dramatic depictions of persecution. And now the Chinese government, for its part, accuses Shen Yun of being a propagandist vehicle for the cult. It claims that the organization misuses art as a means to spread religious and anti-government messages. Chinese embassies and consulates around the world have reportedly attempted to disrupt Shen Yun performances by lobbying theaters and even local governments to cancel shows and spread a lot of negative publicity about the company. So what really happened in 1999 during this ban that the Chinese government put upon Falun Gong? Falun Gong was categorized as an illegal organization, so there were mass arrests, widespread torture, and abuses that followed. Since the Chinese government labeled Falun Gong as a cult, it used that official rationale to justify banning and even eliminating the movement. The CCP started this propaganda campaign that focused on allegations that Falun Gong jeopardized social stability, was deceiving and dangerous, and was also anti-science and threatened social order. Because Shen Yun is banned in China, its performers and organizers operate exclusively outside the country. So now the headquarters is in upstate New York, which seems to be like a breeding ground for modern day cults these days. So back in 1999, Falun Gong practitioners were detained as part of that systematic crackdown by the Chinese government. They obviously posed a threat to the government. And this concern from the CCP was only exacerbated when the group decided to conduct a peaceful protest. So in April of 1999, over 10,000 Falun Gong practitioners gathered in front of a government compound in Beijing. They were protesting the detention of practitioners and demanded official recognition of their practice/religion. The protest, even though it was peaceful and orderly, was seen by the CCP as a direct challenge to its authority. Such a large-scale coordinated action was organized without the state's approval, and actions like this were unprecedented. Now, Falun Gong also presented an ideological conflict. So those traditional moral values that were important to the cult, like spiritual cultivation and those universal principles, kind of clashed with the atheist and materialist ideology of the CCP. The party viewed Falun Gong as a threat to its ideological dominance and sought to suppress any competing belief system that could undermine its control. So the CCP has a deep-seated fear of mass movements. Large, unregulated gatherings, such as those organized by Falun Gong, were perceived as potential precursors to social unrest or political opposition. The CCP is highly sensitive to anything that could disrupt social order. So with millions of people practicing around China, Falun Gong's growing influence was seen as a destabilizing force, even though the group was explicitly advocating nonviolence and discouraged any type of political involvement. But the Chinese government used state-controlled media to portray Falun Gong as a dangerous and subversive cult. Reports claimed that the practice was anti-science, superstitious, and actually responsible for deaths due to practitioners refusing medical treatment, which is a claim that has been contested by Falun Gong followers. So this propaganda campaign was designed to justify the crackdown and turn the public against the group. Then the government actually banned Falun Gong's books and materials. Any public discussion of Falun Gong was heavily censored, and practitioners who tried to counteract the negative portrayal or disseminate any information would be detained or arrested. The crackdown on Falun Gong was spearheaded by then-President Jiang Zemin, who viewed the movement as a personal and political threat. In a letter to CCP officials in 1999, Jiang described Falun Gong as a danger to the party and ordered its suppression. He reportedly saw the group's popularity as an affront to the party's authority and was determined to eradicate it. So to coordinate the campaign, the CCP established the 610 Office, an extrajudicial organization that was tasked with overseeing the suppression of Falun Gong. The office operated outside legal frameworks and was involved in surveillance, arrests, re-education programs, and also those propaganda efforts. Now, once the crackdown began, Falun Gong practitioners were systematically detained through a number of means. There were arrests and imprisonments. Many were sentenced to prison terms or even sent to re-education through labor camps without real formal charges. Detainees were often subjected to torture, forced indoctrination, and physical abuse to pressure them into renouncing Falun Gong. Common methods included sleep deprivation, beatings, electric shocks, and solitary confinement. Really makes you ask, who is the real cult here? The CCP also used extensive surveillance networks to track practitioners and prevent them from organizing or spreading information. Communities were encouraged to report suspected practitioners to authorities. So they're literally asking other members of the community to turn on these followers. And it's been alleged that it was these detained Falun Gong practitioners whose organs were harvested because there was a national shortage in the country. So allegedly, the government was harvesting organs from a group that they deemed a threat so that they could basically sell off body parts to their citizens. It's like, you can't even wrap your brain around it. This is such an interesting and very controversial thing to be talking about because it's, on one hand, really scary to talk about a cult. Something we talk about all the time on this channel is why doesn't the government get more involved in some of these groups? We've even floated the idea around that the freedom of religion in America actually creates kind of this like incubator of cults in a sense, because we have the right to believe whatever we choose to believe or practice whatever spiritual ideology resonates with us. But one can't help but ask, why doesn't the government get more involved when these organizations end up being truly insidious? But on the other hand, it feels like the CCP has totally overstepped those boundaries and actually considered anyone who has any opposition or alternative spiritual point of view to be a full-on enemy, which is exactly what cults tend to do in the first place. So it really feels like this moral dilemma of, is Shen Yun a cult, or are they artists and people that are just practicing their spirituality? Is the real cult the Chinese government? What do you guys think? I feel like this is one of the first organizations where I'm like, yes, this group is dangerous, but perhaps the government fighting it is even more dangerous? I'm not sure. Now, I'm saying all this with a very limited understanding of what exactly communist China has looked like. So if I'm totally off base, please correct me in the comments. But I do find it concerning that when you go and you pay for a show and you're expecting to celebrate Chinese culture, but in fact, you're actually getting a skewed version of that culture that actually is tied to a potentially problematic group, that's just something that I personally don't want to spend my money on and support financially. The Shen Yun Performing Arts exists in direct opposition to the Chinese Communist Party, both as an artistic identity and as an ideological symbol of Falun Gong's resilience. Its exclusion from China underscores this contentious relationship that they have. So shaping Shen Yun's mission as a cultural and humanitarian organization that's operating in exile is also somewhat problematic. While the company defends its political themes as essential to its message, critics argue that Shen Yun blurs that line between art and propaganda. But for those supporters, Shen Yun represents a beacon of cultural preservation and a really powerful platform for addressing human rights abuses. Its very existence serves as a testament to the enduring conflict between the cult and the Chinese state. So please share down below what you think. Have you seen one of these shows? What was your take on it? What did you like about it? What felt like a red flag to you? I'm waiting in anticipation to hear all of y'all's feedback. So thank you all so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate your support this holiday season. And please don't forget about Melissa's Amazon wishlist down in the description and pinned comment down below. And keep an eye out on my community tab. I think I have one more single parent to feature this year. So everybody, I want to say thank you all so much yet again. I hope you have a safe time traveling this weekend. If you're traveling, stay sane around your family. If you find yourself alone this holiday season, please just know that I am thinking about you. And remember, it's okay to spend time with your family, your chosen family. Protect your energy, your mental space this holiday season, and please stay safe out there. Always ask questions and always stay skeptical. I will see you guys on Christmas Eve. I have a really special video coming out for you. It's a little bit different than what the last few videos have been. It's not so centered around cults, but it is centered around the Christianity pagan Yuletide connection / exploitation, and we're going to dive into it on Christmas Eve. Might ruffle some feathers, but I'm just sharing info. Anyways, y'all, thanks again so much. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you very soon. Bye.